guys, welcome back to Perth WAtch. Today I'm featuring a piece from new company Crestical. There you go, I said it with a straight face, sort of. I did communicate my concerns about the name to them, but unfortunately it had already gone to production, so there was nothing that really could be done about it. This is going to be their inaugural piece and it's going to go on Kickstarter pretty soon, I'm told. So I'm going to try to release this video in time with their product launch. So the watch is right here. This is a sample, so it doesn't come in any particular packaging. So without further ado, let's turn the camera around and take a closer look at this guy. Okay guys, so here is the watch on the table. The model number is going to be called the TX1. Obviously, in this case, it is a GMT watch, but depending on how successful their Kickstarter is, there is going to be a few tiers of this, and I'll just show you a picture of the different tiers on the left of screen here. So this one is actually the middle one, which comes with the Seiko Kinetic GMT, but obviously there's going to be a various number of tiers, including a Ronda 515 at the lowest tier, all the way up to the very desirable SW330 GMT Swiss-made movement at the very top for 560. This one you can see is listed at 295 if they manage to meet that particular tier level. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the movement in this watch. So this one, you can see the second hand beating away that this is not an automatic, as the dial says. This one is actually, of course, a quartz movement. It's a Seiko 5M65 Kinetic quartz. It is actually a GMT caliber with independent hour hand adjustment. I don't know if this normally comes with a date, but this one obviously is implemented without a date setting. Okay, so just to show you a little bit about the movement, there's two positions. Zero position is actually not screwed down. Neither of these crowns are screwed down, including the bezel adjustment. So this one's the movement adjustment. If you kind of pull it up to the first position, it allows you to set the hour hand independently. Okay, if you look at that, so that's a very nice and desirable feature. It's kind of like I guess the Rolex GMT Master 2 independent hour hand setting. If you pull it out to the second position, it hacks it, and then you would adjust the minutes along with that orange GMT hand. Okay, I'm not going to show you that because I'm a bit OCD about my time adjustment here. All right, case wise is 44 millimeters across there between my fingers and thumb, my forefinger and thumb. The bezel itself is 43 millimeters. The case is completely in titanium. All right, just show you how it is, including that solid case back with a bit of kind of details and brand name at the back there. The actual thickness, right, is 17 millimeters to the top of that slightly domed glass. Lug width is 22 millimeters, and then the lug-to-lug distance between my thumbs there is 50 millimeters. Overall weight is 140 grams, so despite the fact that this is actually quite a sizable watch, it's light because it is constructed out of titanium. Finishing wise, you've kind of seen it as I moved it around. The case itself is completely matte sandblasted, including the bezel elements there, as well as the crowns, right? Completely matte sandblasted, and it's pretty well done. I quite really enjoy the finishing on this case here. The bracelet, of course, is slightly different in its finishing, and we'll get to that when we talk about the bracelet. Okay, in terms of construction, I've shown you the case back. Okay, solid, okay, titanium screw down case back. It does have double crowns, but as I mentioned earlier, these are, neither of these are actually screw down. They're actually push crowns, which actually are plain, right? There's no signage on these crowns here. Despite that, however, they've rated this watch at 300 meters on the water resistant, along with an automatic helium release valve, which is a bit of a curiosity. I don't know whether you really need that if your crowns are actually not screwed down anyway, but that's what they've given. Okay, talking about the dial now. So let's just take a look at that dial a bit closer with macro shots. So this is a matte black dial with printed wordings as well as a printed chapter ring around the periphery. It does have large applied indices, really quite large and sizable, with plenty of lume in those indices. It's got an internal bi-directional rotating bezel, which you operate with the crown at 2 o'clock, and I kind of showed this to you earlier. It's got polished steel, uniquely shaped hands, rather unique hands. I haven't quite seen hands in this particular exact configuration before, with a simple stick for the seconds hand, and of course that orange arrow for that GMT hand, which you've seen, as soon as you saw this watch. That's the thing that kind of pops out in color out of the otherwise monochrome dial here. It's got actually quite bright and rather unique lume signature, I gotta tell you, because it's got full glow on both the internal as well as external 24-hour bezel. So no watch really looks like this. It's really quite unmistakable how it looks like in the dark, and really glows quite nicely because they've put C3 superluminova. So around the dial is a 60-click unidirectional bezel with what I think is a ceramic 24-hour scale insert. They haven't stipulated whether it's ceramic, but certainly looks and feels like ceramic, but I'll confirm down the bottom here whether it is or not once I get more information from the company. Right, 60 clicks. I'll just show you the clicks now. 5. All right, 10 clicks. Okay, so it's 60 click. I don't mind that. It's a 24-hour bezel. It's not a dive timing bezel. In fact, the internal timing bezel, if you will, doesn't actually have any click. It's actually just smooth rotation without any clicks, or in fact any ability to lock it whatsoever. On top of the dial is a gently domed, slightly boxed actually, also sapphire crystal. That's what they've done here. All right, moving on to the bracelet. All right, you can see here 5-piece per link, which is pretty pleasant. But it's actually longitudinal brush, right? That's really what they've gone for. Slightly different from the case, and you can tell me whether you like that or not. All right, it does have solid ends, as you see there, and it also has, let me show you, hopefully, screw links for the adjustment. So there you go. Hopefully you can see the screw head. They're quite small, and I think that is a bit of an issue. If in this titanium watch, really, I think they should have made those screws a bit bigger. That's really my opinion here, but they have actually put screw adjustment here. Those are not just push pins. Okay, the clasp, unfortunately, is pressed metal and kind of this 3-pin micro adjust position here with push button release. Really that Chinese OEM style, at least it's in titanium, but it's really just that Chinese OEM style bracelet you have seen in so many other watches before. Nothing very custom about the clasp at all. All right, so that's the entire description of this particular watch. Let's just snap it on now for the wrist shot. So, despite the fact that this is 44 millimeters across and 50 millimeters tall on the lug to lug, I think it kind of sits not bad, and certainly sits very comfortably because it is relatively light despite its size. Okay, so that's really how that sits on my wrist, which is 17 centimeters in sizing. All right, there we go. Okay, so that's the watch, guys. What do I like? What do I enjoy about the Crestical GMT? Well, I think it really has achieved a rugged sports outdoors type of look with the titanium lightness, which I really enjoy, having this size watch, which despite the fact that it's on the bracelet, is really quite light. It's got a great Seiko GMT movement. I really like this GMT movement. It behaves like the GMT Master 2 with an independent hour hand setting. I really think that's really the best way to implement the GMT movement. It's got a pretty good bracelet design, nothing much to complain about in terms of the actual look and design. And it's got a pretty cool double bezel case with lots of features and lots of capability here. What I think are the weaknesses? Well, I think the font and index size are a little bit disproportionate. And by that, I mean the font, particularly on that dive timing bezel on the inside, right? Those 10, 20, I think that's a little bit fat. I think they could have done a little bit finer. Those indices are a little bit large for my liking. I think they could have sized that a fraction smaller, and I think it would make the watch look overall slightly more refined. But look, if it's going for an outdoor rugged look, then maybe that's okay, but that's just my personal subjective opinion about those proportions here. I think the dial descriptor in this case is misleading. It says automatic down the bottom there. Obviously, I hope they would change that to a more accurate word like kinetic in the actual release if it comes to it, but automatic isn't quite the right word to put down the bottom there. And I think the bezel choice are wrong. You know, I think the dive timer should be on the outside because it's unidirectional, and you know it prevents you from turning it the wrong way. I think they should have put the 24-hour on the inside, which makes a lot more sense. That's my feeling about this particular bezel choice. They should have reversed that. There's no screw down on these crowns. Will it hold up to 300 meter water resistant rating? I have my concerns about that in terms of long term. Short term, sure, you can make a watch like this. And then the helium release seems a bit strange. You know, do you need to implement that if you're not going to do screw down crowns? Anybody who knows the engineering about these cases, please let me know. Does it make sense to put that if the crowns are not screwed down anyway? And then the bracelet, you know, I would say that the screws are relatively weak. Really, you look at the thickness of the links, they should have made those screws a little bit larger in diameter, and you know, it will give you a bit more confidence that you're not going to ruin them when you change it. And then it doesn't have a micron coating. Maybe they'll change that for the release, but you know, if you see particularly on the clasp here, not sure if any of this is going to come through on the camera, but there are already a few dings that are put onto the titanium because titanium is very easy to scratch. I haven't really been very rough with this watch at all, but because it's titanium, it has already picked up some scratches. I really think it could do with a micron coating to protect it and give it more long-term durability in terms of picking up scratches or protection from scratches there. All right, the mismatch finishing on the bracelet, I've already mentioned that, right? Sandblaster on the case and then brush on the bracelet. Maybe some people really won't like that. I don't know, I don't mind it, you know, that's really what it is, and you got to just accept that there's different finishing there, but some people really wouldn't really like that at all. Okay guys, so that's it, my thoughts on this watch. Let's flip the camera around for the wrap up. So there you go guys, my review of the inaugural watch, the Crestical GMT. In this case, the model came with the Seiko Kinetic GMT movement. So yes, there is an elephant in the room. We're going to push that aside. Yes, there are weaknesses about this watch, and we went into those in detail, but I think there are also a number of objective strengths and things to like about this particular model, which in many ways is quite a competent GMT watch. So guys, let me know what you think about this piece. Can you say the name without, you know, some sort of emotional or facial reaction, maybe? What do you think about the strengths and weaknesses about the piece? Would love to hear your comments below. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. I always put out new content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.